Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the MGT Sewing Sisters mask tutorial. This video provides step-by-step instructions for how to sew a batch of high-quality face masks. For this demonstration, we will use the large adult sized pattern. Additionally, we will only sew 5 masks to demonstrate the process. Therefore, we use the mask pattern to cut 5 pairs of polycotton flannel fabric pieces, which is the gray fabric. And we cut 5 pairs of the 600 thread count cotton fabric, which is the cream colored fabric. Please note that for the community project, we will use black 600 thread count cotton fabric. We also marked the placement for the nose on each fabric piece with an X. Since the right and wrong sides of the fabric appear the same, we also made a small marking to indicate the wrong side. Sew the stack of the 600 thread count cotton pieces first. Remember, for the community project, we will use black 600 thread count cotton fabric. Take the first 2 pieces from the stack. They should already have the right sides together. Sew the curved edge from the nose to the chin. If you are using the MGT 102 sewing machine, select stitch setting 3A to position the needle to the right and use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. On the MGT 102 sewing machine, use the right edge of the presser foot as a guide for sewing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. To do so, line up the edge of the fabric with the right edge of the presser foot. As you stitch the curved edge, be sure to backstitch at the beginning and end of the curved edge. Take 2 more cotton pieces from the stack and stitch along the curved edge from the nose to the chin using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Be sure to backstitch at the beginning and end of the curved edge. Repeat these steps to sew the curved edge of all the cut cotton pieces. Cut the loose threads and stack the sewn cotton pieces. Now sew the stack of cut polycotton flannel pieces in the same manner. With the nose facing up, open a polycotton flannel piece with the right side facing up. Lay a piece of elastic across both sides. On the left side of the mask, pin the elastic a 1/4 inch from the top curved edge for the nose. The elastic should extend a 1/2 inch past the straight edge. Repeat on the right side. Lay the second piece of elastic so that it extends across both sides. On the left side of the mask, pin the elastic a 1/4 inch from the bottom curved edge for the chin. The elastic should extend a 1/2 inch past the straight edge. Repeat on the right side. Open up a cotton piece and lay it flat over the poly cotton flannel piece with the right sides together, matching the nose. Match up the center seam. Make sure the center seam is going to the right. Then pin in place at the nose. Match up the corner at the top, straight left edge, and repin the elastic and fabric in place through all 3 layers. Repeat the above step on all corners to pin the elastic and fabric in place. Rotate the mask so that the chin is facing up. At the chin, make sure the center seam is going to the left. The center seam should be aligned and going in the same direction as the nose. Pin in place. Repeat these steps on the remaining fabric pieces. Grab a mask and place it so that the chin is facing up. You will begin stitching on the right side at a 1/4 inch just before the bottom elastic piece closest to the nose curve. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew a few stitches and then backstitch. Next, continue stitching over the bottom elastic. Then backstitch over the elastic to lock it in place and forward stitch over the elastic, leaving the needle down at a 1/4 inch from the edge. With the needle down, raise the presser foot, pivot the fabric, and align it with the 1/4 inch marking. Lower the presser foot and stitch along the curved edge for the nose to the other side. Stop a 1/4 inch from the edge and leave the needle down in the fabric. Raise the presser foot, pivot the fabric, and align it with the 1/4 inch marking. Lower the presser foot and stitch across the elastic. Backstitch and forward stitch over the elastic. Then continue stitching across the next piece of elastic. Backstitch and forward stitch over the elastic and leave the needle down a 1/4 inch from the edge. Raise the presser foot, pivot the fabric, and align it with the 1/4 inch marking. Lower the presser foot and sew along the curved edge for the chin. Once you reach the center seam at the chin, make sure the seam allowance is going away from you. Continue stitching and stop a 1/4 inch from the edge. Raise the presser foot, pivot the fabric, and align it with the 1/4 inch marking. Lower the presser foot and stitch over the elastic. Then back stitch and forward stitch over the elastic. Stop about a 1/4 inch past the elastic and back stitch. This will leave an open space on one side of the mask. Repeat these steps to sew the remaining fabric pieces. Turn the mask right side out, gently working it through the opening. The outer part of the mask is the side with the 600 thread count cotton fabric. The poly cotton flannel side is the inner part of the mask that touches the face. Pull out the elastic along the ends. Fold in the open edge by a 1/4 inch. Finger press and pin in place. Then pull out and finger press along the seams to smooth them out and so that they line up nicely. If necessary, you can use a mechanical pencil or point turner to push out the seams in the corners. Be careful not to poke through the seam. To create the casing for the nose wire, we will first need to identify the nose placement on the mask. To do so, grab the mask pattern piece and lay it on a flat surface with the markings facing up. Next, fold the mask in half and lay it on top of the pattern, aligning it with the straight edge on the pattern. Be sure the curve for the nose and the curve for the chin are aligned with the pattern. If the nose and chin curves are not aligned, flip the mask and try again. Once the curves for the nose and chin are aligned with the pattern, place a pin at the nose of the mask to mark it. Repeat these steps to mark the nose with a pin on the rest of the masks. Starting at an 1/8 inch from the closed side edge, stitch along the top edge for the nose of the mask using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. It's important to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance to ensure the nose wire will fit in the casing. Stop about a 1/2 inch from the open end and backstitch. Repeat on the rest of the masks. Use tailor's chalk or a fabric marking pen or pencil to measure and mark 2 1/8 inches from the center seam on the left and right sides of the seam. Repeat this step to measure and mark the rest of the masks. Use a plastic covered nose wire that is 3.5 to 4 inches long. Slide the nose wire in through the opening across the top edge for the nose of the mask and place it in the center between the markings. Repeat this step to insert the nose wire in the rest of the masks. Sew along one marking from the top edge of the mask down to the stitched seam. Then reverse stitch over the stitches and forward stitch over them again. Be sure the wire is pushed to the side so you don't sew over it. Stitch along the other marking in the same manner. This encloses the nose wire. Repeat these steps to enclose the nose wire on the rest of the masks. Place a piece of painter's tape on the throat plate along the 1/8 inch seam guide, which is along the left side of the first feed dog on the MGT sewing machine. This will be used in future steps as a guide when stitching at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, begin stitching just before the elastic along the curve for the nose to close the opening in the curved edge. Stop an 1/8 inch from the edge with the needle down. Lift the presser foot, pivot the fabric, and align the edge of the fabric with the marking for an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Top stitch along the folded edge. If you experience difficulty sewing over the elastic, use the hand wheel to sew over it manually. At an 1/8 inch from the corner, pivot and continue top stitching along the bottom edge of the mask. If you experience difficulty sewing over the center seam, use the hand wheel to sew over it manually. Pivot at an 1/8 inch from the corner and continue top stitching along the side edge. Stitch all the way to the edge and backstitch. Finger press to smooth out the edges and seams of the mask. Repeat these steps on the remaining masks. Then trim the loose threads. Cut along the center of the elastic pieces so they form ties. Repeat on the rest of the masks. Open up the mask and tie the left elastic pieces in a loose knot. Use about a 1/2 inch tail of elastic to form the knot. Be sure the knot is not too tight so it can easily be adjusted when worn. Now tie the right elastic pieces in the same manner. Repeat this step on the rest of the masks. Congratulations! Your masks are now complete. All praise is due to Allah.